Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. जय राधा गोविंद, राधा गोविंद श्री राधे। जय जगन्नाथ, जय जगन्नाथ, जय बलदेव, जय सुभद्रा। जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी, नयन पथगामी भवतु मे। जय गौरानिताय, 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 जय गौरानिताय, जय जय प्रभुपाद, 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 प्रभुपाद। जय जय गुरुदेव, गुरुदेव, गुरुदेव। हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गुरु जी की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयते। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यसेवया भगवतिरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च। श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेव श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त श्रीराधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी श्रीराधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावने वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्य पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Prabhuji's Mataji's. Welcome everyone to today's discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, chapter entitled Pandavas Retire Timely. We'll quickly revise where we were and we will try and cover the last portion just as a revision. Sarangani Mataji has covered the individual text and the purports. So we will try to cover the flow. So we saw at the beginning of this particular chapter where Arjuna, it has been more than 7 months since Arjuna had gone to Dwaraka and Yudhishthir Maharaj was seeing one bad omen after another and he was speaking with Bhimasen expressing his apprehensions where his intelligence was definitely pointing to the fact that probably Lord Krishna has left this planet because of which so many ominous signs are manifesting all around. But his heart was not ready to accept. And then we see Arjuna, when he comes back from Dwaraka, is completely dejected, tears rolling down his cheeks. And Yudhishthir Maharaj asked him so many questions, so many speculative inquiries about the well being of the Yadavas. And he also inquires with Arjuna about his own well being, whether he has been able to discharge his duties properly or whether there has been any discrepancies, any gaps because of which he is looking so morose and so dejected. And finally, Yudhishthir Maharaj asked, or whether the Supreme Lord Krishna, who stayed with us as one of our own, he has departed for his own abode. And then Arjuna admits to the fact that Lord Krishna has departed. And in this completely dejected, helpless situation, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that Lord Krishna's instructions came, Arjuna took shelter of Lord Krishna's instruction in such a state of confusion and total dejection before the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra. And when Krishna was personally present in front of him, and now that Krishna is apparently physically not present with the Pandavas, Arjuna is again taking shelter by remembering those instructions of Krishna. So as a joining part between our last discussion and today's discussion, we will just revisit these few 2 3 verses of Arjuna and then we proceed with the particular section. So this particular verse is from this chapter 15, text 27. So you can either refer to the screen or refer to your own copy of Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1. So please try to repeat. These verses explain how did Arjuna not only survive the situation of a very difficult time? Imagine some of our near and dear ones leave us. The whole world seems so different and so difficult to survive. Imagine the condition of Pandavas when Lord Krishna himself has left, on whose guidance they were taking every step of theirs, and whose participation in their day-to-day activities was just like one of their own family members. So let us go through some of these verses. Please try to recite this verse. देशकालार्थयुक्तानि
देशकालान्तयुक्तानि
ऋतपोपशमानि च
रिक्तपोपशमानि च
रिक्तापोपशमानि च
रिक्तापोपशमानि च
हरन्ति स्मरतश्चित्तम्
हरन्ति स्मरतश्चित्तम्
गोविन्द विहितानि मे.
गोविन्द
विहितानि मे.
So Arjuna is recollecting Krishna's words by remembering that those words are as relevant to him at that particular point in time as they were before the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra. And these words, because they are consistently applicable in all Desha, Kala, Artha. Based on the time, place, and circumstances, Krishna's words are always applicable. Yuktani. They are always applicable in all these circumstances. And what do those words do? Tapo pashamani cha. Whatever are the burnings within the heart of a conditioned soul, Krishna's words are completely capable of pacifying that burning of heart. As we experienced at the beginning of uh, Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was completely pacified at the end of the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. And here also, he is trying to gain solace by remembering those same instructions of Lord Krishna that he imparted before the battle of Kurukshetra to pacify his burning heart. Haranti smaratas chittam. And those words of Lord Krishna are completely capable, potent to steal away one's mind, one's attention, completely capture one's attention and place that attention towards Govinda Vihitani Me unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So that is the effect of remembering Lord Krishna's words. So Arjuna is basically expressing himself before Yudhishthir Maharaj. Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead Govinda because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. So Arjuna has that faith, and he, with following his prayers, we can also gain that faith in the words of Lord Krishna. So he has begun his meditation on the Lord's instruction. And what is the effect of that meditation? Effect of remembering Krishna's instructions is the heart becomes pacified, then the mind becomes pacified, and whatever material contamination is there within the heart, Vimala, it is completely washed off. It is completely washed away. Sutta Uvacha. Please try to recite. Sutta Uvacha.
Suta uvacha
Evam chintayато Jishno.
एवं चिन्तयतो विष्णो
Krishnapada Saroruham
कृष्णपादात् सरोरुहम्
Sauhardena Atigadena
सौहार्देन अतिगाढेन
Shantasid Vimala
Shanta Sit Vimala Mati.
Matihi. So this is the next verse where Sutta Goswami is explaining to the sages of Naimish Aranya that by thinking of Krishna in this particular manner, the Lord within the heart, basically Arjuna's heart was expanding and blooming like a lotus flower. Saroruham, Krishna Pada Saroruham. So, Lord manifesting within the heart of Arjuna, he was filling his heart with ecstasy. Sauhardena Atigadena. And his relationship, his friendship with Lord Krishna, Atigadena, it was becoming more and more condensed, it was becoming more and more intense. Shanta Asit Vimala Matihi. And whatever Vimala, whatever material contamination was there, he became completely pacified. Shant Asit. He became completely pacified and peaceful, remembering Lord Krishna's instructions. So the meditation started by Arjuna was on Krishna's instruction, but his mind is becoming totally directed towards Krishna's lotus feet. Prabhuji's Mataji's, if you are not able to hear me, you let me know because the internet connection is bit weak. So I can stop the video if you can't hear properly.
As of now, clear, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Okay, okay. So this is the next verse. We will cover these 2-3 verses. वासुदेवाङ्घ्रि अनुध्यान
Vasudeva.
अनुध्यान परिभ्रमिता रंहसा रंहसा भक्त्या निर्मतिता शेष कसायाधीशनो अर्जुनः So now Arjuna's attention is being routed to Krishna's lotus feet from his instruction, just remembering those words of Krishna. Arjuna's constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna had twofold effect, and this effect was Ramhasa. Ramhasa means with great speed, velocity. That's how Srila Prabhupada translates. It rapidly increased his devotion towards Lord Krishna and all the trash. Now, this word sounds very strong, but this is the word Srila Prabhupada uses in the translation. And as a result, all the trash in his thoughts subsided. So Arjuna was able to overcome the lamentation and the aggrievement which he was experiencing because of feelings of separation from Lord Krishna by remembering his words. Gitam Bhagavata Jnanam
Gitam Bhagavatam Jnanam
Yattat Sangrama Murdhani
Yat Murdani
Kalakarma Tamoruddham Punaradhyagamat Prabhuhu. Because of Lord's pastimes and activities and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjun forgot the instructions left by the personality of Godhead. But factually, this was not the case. And again, he became Lord of his senses. So momentarily, it seemed that Arjuna was completely clueless and overwhelmed by Lord Krishna's disappearance and the feelings of separation. But he regained his composure and he again became the Lord of his senses. Punar Adyagamat Prabhu. He again became the Lord of his senses, remembering Krishna's instructions, Krishna's words, and routing his mind again on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, focusing his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So with this, we begin our discussion. And even the next verse is very relevant, but in the interest of time, we will just see the translation. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, for he was freed from material form. This was the effect Arjuna had by remembering Krishna's words, and through that remembrance on Krishna's instruction, focusing his mind and attention on the lotus
Prabhu,
feet
what
of
is this
Lord
here?
Krishna. Hare Krishna, P.S. Murthy Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I just wanted to know
Hare,
what is this verse? What is the verse you are
this
teaching?
is from the same chapter, Prabhuji.
15.31,
So this
Prabhu.
is the connection between, 15.31.
Thank you,
Okay.
Prabhu.
So let us start with today's Hare Krishna. So let us start with today's text, starting from text 32. Anybody would like to recite through Mataji's, Prabhuji's Hare Krishna? Keep your hands on, so we will request one by one. And please try to recite in proper meter so that everybody feels inspired. Gita Pradeep Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Bhagavan Margam
निशम्या
Nishamya Bhagavan Margam
भगवान्
Samstam Yadukulasya Cha
Samsam
संस्थां
Samstam Yadu Kulasya Cha
Swapathaya Matim Chakre
स्वपदाय
Swapataya Matim Chakre
Nirghatatva Yudhishthiraha
Nibrathatma
Nirutatatma. Translation.
Translation. Upon hearing of all Krishna's returning to his abode, and upon understanding the end of the Yadu dynasty's earthly manifestation, Maharaja Yudhishthira decided to go back home, back to Godhead. Perfect.
Yes. So, yeah. So hold on for a minute, Mataji. We see that Pandavas and Yudhishthir personally, they have gone through such difficult time before Maharaj, before the battlefield of Kurukshetra. They went through 14 years of exile in the forest, very difficult conditions. And even before that 14 years, they were raised in a very difficult circumstances by their mother, Queen Kunti, where constantly there were attempts on their lives and they were mistreated and somehow were protected by the mercy and support of Uncle Vidura and Lord Krishna's grace. So after so many years of difficulty, finally after the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when Maharaj Yudhishthir was enthroned as the sovereign king of the entire earthly planet, he was not attached to being the king. Now, when that prophecy of Narada Muni, where he had mentioned that all of you Pandavas, you stay on this earth till the time Lord Krishna is present and assist him in his mission. And after that, you can retire. So now that that prophecy was coming true with the departure of Lord Krishna, Yudhishthir Maharaj is not for a moment is in any doubt or confusion in terms of what to do next. He is immediately, as soon as the news of Lord Krishna's concluding his pastimes is confirmed, he is immediately getting ready himself to retire from the life as the king and prepare himself to go back home, back to Godhead. And as it will be cleared in the coming subsequent verses, it is not that the Pandavas planned together that Arjuna, Bhimasen, Nakul, Sahadev, you get ready, make sure that everything is packed properly. And are we ready to leave home? Let us start together. Not at all. Everybody was so eager just to prepare themselves and go back home, back to Godhead. They did not even wait for a minute. And as it will be clear in the subsequent verses, they did not even wait for Draupadi. Nobody told the other person that you come along. Yudhishthir Maharaj left, following his footsteps. His younger brothers left, following the Pandavas' footsteps. Draupadi and Subhadra Devi, they also followed. And Kunti Devi also, once she confirmed the news of Krishna's departure from Arjuna, she also prepared herself to go back home, back to Godhead. So the point is the lack of feeling of any ownership on any of the material assets that they possessed, and the total detachment, renunciation of the Pandavas led by Maharaj Yudhishthir to give up all worldly possessions the moment it was confirmed that Lord Krishna has left this planet. Yes, Mataji, please go ahead with the purport. Let me just check if it is not long, we can read complete purport. Okay, you just read the highlighted part, Mataji.
Yes. He began to deliberate.
Maybe
Hello.
you can start from the first line. First line you can start now.
Okay. Maharaja Yudhishthira also turned his attention to the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita after hearing about the Lord's departure from the vision of earthly people. He began to deliberate on the Lord's way of appearance and departure. The mission of the Lord's appearance and disappearance in the mortal universe is completely dependent on his supreme will. He is not forced to appear or disappear by any superior energy, as the living beings appear and disappear, being forced by the law of nature. Whenever the Lord likes, he can appear himself from anywhere and anywhere without disturbing his appearance and disappearance in any other place. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that anyone who factually understands the transcendental appearance and disappearance of the Lord by his convincible energy becomes liberated from the loss of birth and death and is placed in the eternal spiritual sky where the Vaikuntha planets are. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. And in the later part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada compares Lord's appearance and disappearance with that of the appearance and disappearance of the sun. So, sun cannot be forced to appear in any place. It appears on its own accord. Now, obviously, we know that the sun and the moon, they work under the direction of Lord Krishna. But for the comparison, similarly, Lord Krishna, his appearance and disappearance is also as per his own accord. So he felt that his mission in this particular life is accomplished and he decided to conclude his pastimes. Similarly, whenever he feels the need to appear in other universes based on that particular time, place, and circumstances, the Lord is free to appear. In fact, we discussed this earlier that Lord's pastimes are called Nitya Leela. That means even right now, even at this moment, in one universe or another, Lord's pastimes are constantly happening. That means somewhere or other, Vasudev and Devaki are still being persecuted by Kamsa. Somewhere or other, Lord is still appearing within the heart of the Vasudev and then within the heart and then within the womb of Devaki. So these pastimes are constantly happening, and somewhere or other, Pandavas are still assisting the Lord in his mission. So Yudhishthir Maharaj, remembering this truth about the appearance and disappearance of the Lord out of his own free will, is now preparing to retire himself from the responsibilities as the king. Who is the next? Prema Priya Jayashri Mataji. Other devotees can also keep your hands raised, Prabhuji's Mataji's, then we will request one by one. We don't spend much time. Prema Priya Mataji, please recite. Hare Krishna. Or any other devotees. I think there is some issue with Mataji's mic.
Hare Krishna. I'll go ahead, Prabhu. Hare
Anyone?
Krishna. Radhika here. Hare Krishna.
Rasarangini Mataji, please.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Pratapi anushrutya dhananjayoditam
प्रतापि
Api Anushrutya Yovitam
nasham yadunam bhagavad gatim chatam
नाशां यदूनां
Asham Yaduna Bhagavad
किञ्चताम्
Gatim Chatam
ekanta bhaktya bhagavata dokshaje
एकांत भक्त्या भगवती अदोक्षजे
भगवती अदोक्षजे
निवेशितामो परराम संश्रितेः
निवेशितामो परराम संस्कृते.
Hare Krishna.
Translation.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada to Jai. Kunti, after overhearing Arjuna's telling of the end of the Yadu dynasty and disappearance of Lord Krishna, engaged in the devotional service of the transcendental personality of Godhead with full attention and thus gained release from the course of material existence. Hare Krishna.
Purport.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The setting of the sun does not mean the end of the sun. It means that the sun is out of our sight. Similarly, the end of the mission of the Lord on a particular planet or universe only means that he is out of our sight. The end of the Yadu dynasty also does not mean that it is, Hare Krishna, annihilated. It disappears along with the Lord out of our sight. As Maharaja Yudhishthira decided to prepare to go back to Godhead, so also Kunti decided, and thus she fully engaged herself in the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, which guarantees one a passport for going back to Godhead after quitting this present material body. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So here we see that all these members of the Pandava family, they were all, Srila Prabhupada time and again uses the word that they were trained in remembrance and focusing their mind on Lord's lotus feet. So their leaving of the home and focusing their mind and attention of Lord Krishna and giving up this present body, it was not in a arranged manner. So all of these members of the Pandava family, they left one after another. And in terms of the Yadus, we also discussed about this in our earlier discussion about Mosha Leela, that some of these members of the Yadu family, Yadu dynasty, they were Nitya Parikar, they were the eternal associates of the Lord in the spiritual world, while some of the members of the Yadu dynasty, they were the Devatas, whose duties were on the different heavenly planets. So when the time came for Lord to wind up his pastimes, he wanted all the members of the Yadu dynasty to return back to their respective abodes and continue with their services. So those members of the Yadu dynasty who were Devatas, they went back to the heavenly planets to continue their service for the remainder of the time in this material world, while the eternal associates of the Lord, the other members of the Yadu dynasty, as well as the Pandavas, who are also eternal associates of the Lord, they prepared to go back to their own abode, that is back home, back to Godhead. And here we see Kunti Devi, she overheard the conversation between Arjuna and Maharaj Yudhishthir, and she also prepared to focus her mind and go back to Godhead. Usha Kamat Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yeah. Verse
Hare Krishna.
34. Yaya harad bhuvo bharam.
Yaya harad bhuvo bharam.
Tam tanum vijaha vajaha.
Tam tanum
vijaha vajaha.
Kantakam kantake neva.
kantakam
Dvayam chapi shitu samam.
Dvayam chapi shitu samam. Yeah.
Translation.
So in this verse, the word, just 1 second, Usha Mataji.
Yes.
The word Kantakam Kantake Naiva is important, where Bhagavatam is denoting that the Devatas as well as Asuras, they are both same to the Lord in terms of they being the part and parcel. However, because of some of these entities, specifically the Asuras, they had created lot of disturbance on the surface of the earth. Lord Krishna used some of his other part and parcels, the devatas, in order to deal with these asuras. So kantakam kantakenaiva. That means Lord used one thorn to deal with other thorn. And Srila Prabhupada explains based on the Acharya's commentary, these what were the difference between these two thorns. One are the asuras and other are the devatas, suras. Yes, Mataji, translation.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada ki jai. The Supreme Unborn Lord Sri Krishna caused the members of the Yadu dynasty to relinquish their bodies, and thus he relieved the burden of the world. This action was like picking out a thorn with a thorn, though both are the same to the controller. Purport. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura suggests that the rishis like Shaunaka and others who were hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Shuta Goswami at Naimisharanya were not happy to hear about the Yadus dying in the madness of intoxication. To give them relief from this mental agony, Shuta Goswami assured them that the Lord caused the members of the Yadu dynasty to relinquish their bodies by which they had to take away the burden of the world. The Lord and his eternal
Yes.
associates.
Yeah, just 1 second,
Yes.
Mataji. So basically, the sages of the Naimisharanya, who this pastime was being revealed to by Suta Goswami, they were quite confused at the way the conclusion of the Yadu dynasty happened, which was through the drinking of the liquor and the Yadu members they getting mad and fighting amongst each other and annihilating one another. So, in reply to that, Suta Goswami, sensing their discomfort, the sages of Naimisharanya, is clarifying that all this is happening only because of Lord's wish. And just like, so there are different reasons that are mentioned by the Acharyas in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam specifically. Why did Lord Krishna want Yadu dynasty to be annihilated, to be finished before his eyes, before he would conclude his pastimes on the earth? So one reason that is given is the some of the members of the Yadu dynasty, they were acting bit whimsically even while the Lord was present. And secondly, all of them were very, very powerful, being the direct descendants of the Lord and also being various powerful devatas. So there was a possibility that if Lord would have left before the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, then many of these members they would have created havoc on the earth in their frustration and lamentation after Lord's departure. And Lord wanted that disturbance to be avoided after his departure. So he desired that all the members of the Yadu dynasty they depart before him, before he departs himself. That was the second reason. And third reason, as we discussed a while ago, many of these members of the Yadu dynasty were playing very important role in the administration of the material universe, in the role of various devatas. And Krishna wanted them to go back to their respective positions and retake those roles and complete their tenure of service, whatever they were assigned to in this material world. So, due to all these reasons, Krishna arranged for the Moshala Leela, the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, before his own eyes. And here Bhagavatam mentioned just like a one thorn is used to take out another thorn, the members of the Yadu dynasty were used against each other. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. One question. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Murli Prabhu.
What was the first reason, Prabhuji? I could take the second and third.
Yeah. First reason is some of the members of the Yadu dynasty were behaving in a whimsical what
manner.
is the parallel word?
Yes.
Whimsical manner.
Whimsical
Even when Lord
manner.
Krishna was present.
Okay, that's right.
Hare Krishna.
Usha Mataji, please continue. Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Prabhu, just one doubt I have in the previous verse. Arjuna actually was thinking still of Krishna, right? I understand it's Vipralamba Bhav, but it was still Krishna, right? So why is it addressed as thrash, Prabhu? That is one thing which I could not resonate.
Yeah, so basically, whenever Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita talks about the contamination, material contamination in the heart of Arjuna, we should understand that he is a Nitya associate, he is an eternal associate of the Lord. It is just that he is representing one of us. Otherwise, he does not have any trash. In fact, trash is a very strong word. Prabhupada can write it, but we can never say that Arjuna had any trash. But that is the word that is used in the translation. So that contamination was just to represent a conditioned soul, but he himself was liberated. He's just representing like he did before the battle of Kurukshetra. He's doing now how the dejection, how the crisis in one's life are to be dealt with by focusing one's mind on Krishna's instruction and Krishna's form.
Clear, Prabhu.
Okay, Mataji. So yes, definitely his remembrance was on Lord Krishna, but that contamination is just denoting any of the conditioned soul like us. Arjuna is eternally all pure.
Clear, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Usha Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji, continue or just the highlighted part?
You can do highlighted part so we can finish in time.
Yes, Prabhuji. For the Supreme Lord, both the Asuras and the demigods are equal. But the demigods are obedient to the Lord, whereas the Asuras are not. Therefore, for the example of picking out a thorn by another thorn is quite befitting. One thorn which causes pinpricks on the leg of the Lord is certainly disturbing to the Lord, and the other thorn which takes out the disturbing elements certainly gives service to the Lord. So, although every living being is a part and parcel of the Lord, still one who is a pinprick to the Lord is called an Asura, and one who is a voluntary servitor of the Lord is called a Devata or demigod.
Demigod.
Hare.
Yes. So, thank you, Mataji. So while some members of the Yadu dynasty were used by the Lord to clear the disturbing elements who are compared to the thorn which is causing a pinprick, but ultimately both of them are equally dear to the Lord. It is just that because of their inclination, they are acting in a particular manner. Specifically, the example is given that when the Asura ghastly sin when Bhimasen killed Duryodhana, breaking his thighs. Duryodhana was lying in a pool of blood. And Mahabharata mentions that it is not that Krishna was very pleased. He was feeling sad seeing Duryodhana in that particular state. But it was just that he had given Duryodhana umpteen number of chances to correct, to fix his consciousness, and given him umpteen number of chances to surrender, to align himself with the will of the Lord, and even then be king by aligning himself with the will of the Lord. And despite all these chances, when he did not take those chances and still met the fate that he met, Krishna was not happy, but it is just that he needs to deal with some of the rebellious souls, rebellious children of his in that particular way, just to correct their mentality. So Bhagavatam mentions that both these type of personalities, those who cause disturbance to the Lord and those who are voluntary servitors of the Lord, both are dear to the Lord. Just that those who are causing disturbance, they are meted out with punishment just to correct their rebellious mentality. But Krishna is never angry, or Krishna is never upset with those asuras. Of course, he is upset when his devotees are persecuted. But in general, it is not a very pleasure thing for Krishna to punish these asuras. They are equally dear to Krishna. So now we come to a very important verse, text 35. Sanjukta Mataji, Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Prema Priya
Hare
Mataji, I will,
Hare
I will, I will request you a verse in the end, Prema Priya Mataji. Okay.
Hare
So
Krishna
wait
Prabhu.
for your turn.
Hare
Divya
Krishna
Rukmini
Prabhu.
Mataji, yes, Mataji.
Prabhu,
Yes, Mataji.
can you please let me that this action was like picking out a thorn in that purport. This action was like picking out a thorn with a thorn. Though both are the same to the controller. That means actually he purposely made them for us made them asuras. Actually, they
See,
are the
yeah,
associates of the.
no. Yaduts, he purposely made them fight amongst each other and annihilate each other. Okay. So
Okay.
just so just like, have you ever used a thorn? Like, I have not used a thorn, but I have used a hairpin to remove a thorn. So both are very pointed objects, and when they get stuck within our flesh, it causes pain. But the hairpin or the thorn that we use to take out a thorn, that pinprick is relieving. Why? Because the other thorn is taken out of our flesh. Similarly, for Krishna to have the Yadavas engage with each other in duel, in fight, and annihilate each other, it was just like one set of thorns being used to take out another set of thorns. So these thorns doesn't, those which are pinprick thorns, they refer to the asuras, not necessarily the members of the Yadu dynasty. But Krishna did use the members of the Yadu dynasty to deal with these asuras. Is that all right, Divya Rukmini Mataji?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. I'll start, Prabhuji.
And Sanjukta Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'll start.
Yes.
Yatha Mashyadi Rupani.
यथा
मत्स्यादिरूपाणि
Yathamasyadirupani
Dhati Jayhat Yatha Nava. Yatha Nataha.
यथा नतः
Nataha
Bhubhara Kshapito Yena.
Shapito Yena
Jahu Tajjak Jale Baram. Jahu Tajjak Jale Baram.
कलेवरम्
Translation.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Supreme Lord relinquished the body which he manifested to diminish the burden of the earth. Just like a magician, he relinquished one body to accept different ones, like the fish, incarnations, and others.
Yes. So here again, if we refer to the verse, the word used is nataha. Do we recollect Prabhuji's Mataji's where else this word was used recently? In whose prayers to refer to Krishna? In whose prayers we saw this word? Kunti Devi's prayers. Yeah, where just like the actor, he disguises himself uh, on the stage to play a particular role. Here as well, Krishna is being referred to as a nataha, as an actor who takes on different dresses. Dhatte Jaya. Dhatte means one after another, eternally, not like once in a while. So this was Suta Goswami is explaining how Lord Krishna takes one form after another based on the need to deal with the asuras. An example he gives is just like he takes, for example, the fish incarnation. Yes, Mataji, please go ahead, Sanjukta Mataji.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Lord is described as Amarta or deathless. Amrita or deathless, because he has no material body. Under the circumstance, the Lord dying or quitting his body is like the jugglery of a a magician. The magician shows by his tricks that he is cut to pieces, burnt to ashes, or made unconscious by hyp- hyp- hypnotic
Hypnotic.
influences, but all are false. Shows only. False shows only. Factually, the magician himself is neither burnt to ashes nor cut to pieces, nor is he dead or unconscious at any stage of his magician demonstrations. Similarly, the Lord has his eternal forms of unlimited variety, of which the fish incarnation, as was exhibited within this universe, is also one, because there are innumerable universes somewhere or other. The fish incarnation must be manifesting his pastime without ce- cessation.
Cessation.
Cessations.
Hmm.
In this verse, the particular word that dhate, eternally accepted, and not the word the dhitva, accepted for the occasion, is used. The idea is that the Lord does not create the fish incarnations. He eternally has such a form, and the appearance and disappearance of such an incarnation serves particular purpose. I'll go further, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Madhuri. Yeah, go ahead. In the Bhagavatam,
In Bhagavatam also it is said that the Lord appeared like a thunderbolt to those who were restless. Sisupala, at the time of being killed by the Lord, could not see him as Krishna, being dazzled by the glare of the Brahma Yoti. Therefore, the temporary manifestation of the Lord as a thunderbolt to the restless appointed by Krishna, or the glaring appearance of the Lord before Sisupala, was relinquished by Lord. But the Lord as a magician is eternally existent and is never vanquished in any circumstance.
thank you, Madhuri. So here we see that Lord Krishna, he takes different forms in order to deal with different entities. And what to speak of he taking different forms one after another, even while Krishna is in one particular form, he is pursued by different people in different manner based on their rasa, based on their feelings of reciprocation towards Lord Krishna. And in order to explain this, Srila Prabhupada is quoting this famous verse from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, from 10th canto, 43rd chapter, text 17, where it is explained how when Krishna and Balaram, when they entered the arena in Mathura, when they entered Kamsa's arena in Mathura, how they were pursued by different people differently based on their rasa with them. Like, say, for example, the various groups of people in the arena regarded Krishna in different ways when he entered it with his elder brother Balaram. The wrestlers saw Krishna as a lightning bolt, the men of Mathura as the best of males. The women, that means the men of Mathura, saw Krishna and Balaram as the best of males. The women of Mathura, they saw Krishna and Balaram as Cupid in person. The cowherd men from Vrindavan, they saw Krishna and Balaram as their relatives. The impious rulers, namely Kamsa and his cronies, they saw Krishna and Balaram as chastisers. His parents, Nanda and Yashoda, they saw Krishna and Balaram as their child, as their children. The king of the Bhojas, that means Kamsa himself. The king of the Bhojas, he saw Krishna as death. The unintelligent, they saw Krishna, they saw the Supreme Lord's universal form. And the yogis, they saw the absolute truth. And the Vrishnis, Vrishnis means Vasudev's dynasty. The Vrishnis, they saw Krishna as their supreme worshipable deity. That means even when Krishna is present in one particular form, he is perceived differently based on different people's reciprocation of feelings towards him. So the Asuras, they saw him like a death personified, Kamsa and all. Similarly, we also seen the description of Krishna in Putana's pastime, Krishna killing Putana, that although Krishna was just few days old when this pastime happened, when Putana first time saw Krishna and he closed his eyes, the few days old baby, she could perceive Krishna as the child which can devour the entire universe. Although Krishna's limbs were extremely tender, for Mother Yashoda, Putana did not perceive Krishna in that particular manner. Or similarly, when we see Trunavarta having lifted Krishna high up in the sky, he saw Krishna's weight as more than that of the entire universe, and he could not carry Krishna, baby Krishna's weight in his arms. So he saw Krishna as extremely heavy. So that's how different demons as well as different close relatives, family, and friends of Krishna perceive himself differently. So we proceed to the next verse. Are there any questions, comments, Prabhuji's, Mataji's? Anybody wants to share anything? We will have a group exercise on this, but after we cover the retirement of all the members of the Pandava family, and there is a very powerful purport, a series of purports, 2 to 3 purports Srila Prabhupada gives, where he mentions how it is important for each and every person to retire not at the fag end of life. Prabhupada clearly mentions at least the last 15 to 20 years of one's life. That means when our hands, legs, eyes, ears, and all the other senses are working good, that time we should dedicatedly reserve for Krishna, to pursue Krishna consciousness exclusively. So we will go through those purports and then we have a group activity. So let us proceed. Text 36. All right, let me request Prema Priya Mataji, would you like to recite? Can you try now?
Yes,
If your
yes,
mic
Prabhuji.
works.
Am I audible now?
Okay.
Am I audible?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
go ahead.
Hare-
Yes, Mataji.
Yada mukundo bhagavani mamahim.
Yada
Mukundo
Mukundo
Bhagavan Mamahim
Bhagavan Imam Mahim
Jahau satanva shanaviya satkataha.
Jaho Satanva
Jaho
Savaniya
Satanva
Satkataha
Shravaniyat Satkataha
Tadaha eva pratibuddha chetasam.
Tada Deva Pratibhutta
Deva
Chetataha
Pratibhuddha Chetasam
Abhadrahetu kalir anvavartata.
Abhadra
Abhadrahetu
Hetu Kalyanavattata.
Anva Vartata. Translation.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada Prabhupada Ki Jai. When the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, left this earthly planet in his self-same form, from that very day, Kali, who had already partially appeared, became fully manifest to create inauspicious conditions for those who are endowed with a poor fund of knowledge. May I read the purport, Prabhuji?
Yes. Yeah. Before you read the purport, a question for everyone. I've deliberately moved the page. Can anyone answer? Why does Bhagavatam mention that Kali had already appeared? We had seen a proof. What was the proof that Kali had already appeared? Anybody who wants to answer can raise their hand. And
It's a
yeah.
Duryodhana, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Come again.
The cow being chased by a man, I mean, to kill the cow.
No, so but yeah,
What-
but
what-
that
what is the
description has
question,
not
Prabhuji?
yet come right.
Hare
Question
Krishna,
is
Prabhuji.
the Bhagavatam. Yeah, I will repeat the question. I will repeat the question. In this particular verse, it is mentioned when the personality of Godhead Lord Krishna left his earthly planet in his self same form, from that very day, Kali, who had already partially appeared, became fully manifest. So, my question is, based on the verses we have seen so far, what fact indicates that Kali had already appeared even before Krishna's departure?
Hare Krishna
So,
Prabhu, it's a present.
yeah,
Hare Krishna Prabhu. It's a
yeah,
presence of Duryodhana and the family of Kaurava and Pandu. It's a partial appearance of.
okay.
Is it?
So, see,
Yeah.
if you are saying that the Asuric mentality of Duryodhana, Dushyasan, and so on, but they behaved Asuric demoniac manner even much before, but that doesn't necessarily denote that Kali has appeared. There is a specific guideline which we saw in the verses we have covered, which denotes that Kali had appeared. Who saw the symptoms? So I've given a clue maybe Adidev Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Adidev Gopesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, God pranams.
Yes, Prabhuji. Dhanwas.
Prabhuji, Yudhishthir Maharaj had seen many bad symptoms, so that is the indication that Kali had already appeared.
Yes, perfect. So those bad omens seen by Yudhishthir in terms of close relatives fighting, even on a small disagreement, big fights occurring, those symptoms were the indication that Kali had already appeared. It is just that he was not fully manifest. But now that Krishna had left, Kali had started showing his full manifestation, symptoms of full manifestation. So that was the indication that Kali had appeared. So basically, Yudhishthir Maharaj had seen those symptoms. So we proceed. Prema Priya Mataji, please
Yes, Prabhuji.
continue.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Purport. The influence of Kali can be enforced only upon those who are not fully developed in God consciousness. One can utilize the effects of Kali by keeping oneself fully under the supreme care of the personality of Godhead. Do I continue, Prabhuji? Will you continue?
Yes, please continue.
The age of Kali ensued
Yes.
just after the Battle of Kurukshetra, but it could not exert its influence because of the presence of the Lord. The Lord, however, left this earthly planet in his own transcendental body, and as soon as he left, the symptoms of the Kali Yuga, as were envisioned by the Maharaja Yudhishthira prior to Arjuna's arrival from Dwarka, began to manifest. And Maharaja Yudhishthira rightly conjectured on the departure of the Lord from the earth. As we already explained, the Lord left our sight just as when the sun sets, it is out of our sight. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So here it is mentioned that the Kali, he started manifesting its influence fully as soon as Lord Krishna departed. But when very hope-giving statement in Srila Prabhupada's purport is that it is optional, it is our choice if we want to let that influence of Kali come upon us, or if we want to protect ourselves from the influence of Kali, that is also possible. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, the influence of Kali can be enforced only upon those who are not fully developed in God consciousness. One can neutralize the effects of Kali by keeping oneself fully under the supreme care of the personality of Godhead. That means it is possible to protect oneself from the influence of Kali if we properly take shelter of Krishna, specifically, specifically through the process of hearing and chanting about the Lord. Then we can definitely protect ourselves. And specifically, later on in the purports in this particular chapter, Srila Prabhupada also writes, if we take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, the last verse of this particular chapter, Srila Prabhupada writes, if we take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, then we can be protected from the influence of Kali and perfect our lives, even in this degraded age. So these verse and all you can go through Just to save time, we will proceed now because there are quite a few verses. Mataji, continue with the translation. Maharaj Yudhishthir. Prema Priya Mataji, continue. All right. Gunavati Mataji, please unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
The translation. Translation. Ji? Hare Krishna.
Sorry. One second. Yes. Please continue.
Yes, Prabhuji. Maharaj Yudhishthira was intelligent enough to understand the influence of the age of Kali, characterized by increasing avarice, falsehood, cheating, and violence throughout the capital, state, home, and among individuals. So he wisely prepared himself to leave home and he dressed accordingly. Hare Krishna.
Everyone understands the meaning of this word avarice. Avarice is opposite of attachment. So it is something like hatred, disliking something too much, avarice. So here Yudhishthir Maharaj, seeing all these symptoms of Kali, is preparing himself to leave home, and he has dressed himself accordingly in the garb of a sannyasi, as it will be clear. So highlighted part, Mataji, please continue. Those who are
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji. Those who are under the protection of the Lord have nothing to fear from this horrible age. Maharaj Yudhishthira was a great devotee of the Lord, and there was no necessity of his being afraid of the age of Kali. But he preferred to retire from active household life and prepare himself to go back home, back to Godhead. The Pandavas are eternal companions of the Lord, and therefore they are more interested in the company of the Lord than anything else. Should I continue, Prabhuji?
yeah, please continue.
Besides that, being the ideal king, Maharaja Yudhishthira wanted to retire just to set an example for others. As soon as there is some young fellow to look after the household affairs, one should at once retire from family life to
Uplift. Okay, I will.
uplift himself to spiritual realization. Yeah, uplift himself to spiritual realization. One should not in the dark well of household life till one is dragged out by the will of Yamaraja. Modern politicians should take lessons from Maharaja Yudhishthira about voluntary retirement from active life and should make room for the younger generation. Also, retired old gentlemen should take lessons from him and leave home for spiritual realization before being forcibly dragged away to meet death. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. So we see Srimad Bhagavatam is time and again condemning staying attached in household life till the very end of one's life. Srimad Bhagavatam is explaining here how, in case of Pandavas, they did not have a reason to be fearful of Kali because they themselves were perfectly situated in the devotional service to Lord Krishna. They could have resisted the influence of Kali even while staying within the palace and practicing their Krishna consciousness nicely. But the whole purpose of the Pandavas to remain on the earth was to assist the Lord in his mission. And that purpose was fulfilled now that Krishna had returned back to his own abode. And secondly, Parikshit Maharaj, the heir to the throne, was ready. He was already trained by the Pandavas. So Yudhishthir Maharaj was not in any doubt or confusion at all. He immediately prepared to enthrone Parikshit as the sovereign king of the entire kingdom, and he planned to retire. immediately accepting the dress of a sannyasi. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that we see in the modern day and age, the modern age politicians, typically I give the example because it is very graphic and striking. The British monarchy, we see that the son had been waiting for the throne entire his life. And finally, when he became 70 plus, and when his mother literally was dragged by Yamaraj or whoever, like basically when she died at the age of 96, only then she relinquished the throne at the time of death. And finally, the son got the throne when he was already a old person, 70 plus years of age. And as the destiny would have it, as soon as he ascended to the throne, within 1 or 2 years of that, he was diagnosed with a very severe disease of cancer. And now, even when the king is diagnosed with the cancer, it is not that the transition of the throne to the younger generation is happening immediately. So the attachment to the that when a person spends his old age and dies in this particular household worldly attachment, the chance of getting out of this material world and going back home back to Godhead is almost nil, till almost zero. So it is not at all recommended to pass the last days of one's life in the household affairs. Now, one thing, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, many of our devotee members here are senior citizens. Bhagavatam is not necessarily talking about leaving home. By leaving home, what does it mean? It means to fully dedicate oneself to the service of Lord Krishna and relinquishing the household related responsibilities to the younger generation. If we stay attached to the property, increasing the business, maintaining the business, so on and so forth, then our attachment will invariably remain to the household stuff, and the chances of remembering Krishna at the end of our life will be very minimal. So, staying in the present day context, staying within the home is not the factor. The factor is how much is our involvement in day to day household affairs. Bhagavatam is specifically recommending we to dedicate our life wholeheartedly, whole solely in service to Lord Krishna. Minimum exactly figure Srila Prabhupada gives in the subsequent purport, minimum 15 to 20 years of our life we should dedicate towards service to Krishna. And in the notes, I have also given a positive example of a great devotee of the Lord. We see the example of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was not an ordinary householder. He was such an exalted householder that even in his household life, whenever Bhaktivinoda Thakur would hold uh, discussions, Namahatta and so on and so forth, great renunciates like Gaura Kishordas Babaji Maharaj, who considered Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur as a Shiksha Guru, as well as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's own spiritual master, Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. Such renunciates, they were very interested in hearing from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So imagine a householder who gives inspiration even to the renunciates. So what stature of Krishna consciousness he was situated in? Even such an exalted personality, and he was performing the duty as a very responsible government servant in the British rule, that of being a district magistrate. But even he, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, considered it apt to relinquish his household duties, and last 12, 15, 20 years of his life, he dedicatedly devoted for single pointedly focusing his attention on Krishna bhajan and stayed in Jagannath Puri, and then gave up his body in that particular place. So it is not that how good, how well we are situated in spiritual life. The point is, are we able to take our attention out from the household stuff? That is very important. Otherwise, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, our next life in this material world is 100% assured if we can't detach ourselves. Very important. Any devotees have any questions, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, on this particular point? If not, we proceed. Hare Krishna. All right. Ishwari Murari Priya Mataji and Jagadananda Prabhu. Please read thereafter.
Thereafter, in capital of Hastinapura, he enthroned his grandson, who was trained and equally qualified as the emperor and master of all lands bordered by the seas. Purport.
Yeah,
From
highlighted
beginning,
part.
the only
The
reason
highlighted
is
part.
that, yes, the only reason is that the people of the world were happy because of good administration of the emperor. The happiness of the citizen was due to the ample production of natural produce such as grains, fruits, milk, herbs, valuable stones, minerals, and everything that the people needed. They were even free from all bodily miseries, anxieties of mind, and disturbances caused by natural phenomena and other living beings. Everyone was trained to attain the highest goal of life, and therefore the people were also enlightened enough not to quarrel over trivialities. The influence of the age of Kali gradually infiltrated the good qualities of both the kings and the citizens, and therefore a tense situation developed between the ruler and the ruled. But still, even in this age of disparity between the ruler and the ruled, there can be spiritual emolument and God consciousness that is a special prerogative. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. So some of this part we will just quickly summarize and proceed. So Yudhishthir Maharaj, basically he enthrones two kings. He enthrones Maharaj Parikshit as the sovereign king of the entire world, the earthly planet, and he also enthrones the great grandson of Lord Krishna, the son of Aniruddha, Vajranab, as the king of Shurasena province. Now, Shurasena province is basically under which Mathura falls. So, Maharaj Parikshit and Maharaj Vajranab have been enthroned by Maharaj Yudhishthir, and then he prepares himself for quitting the household life. So this part you can go through later at your leisure. And we see that both these personalities, specifically Maharaj Parikshit, he was specifically and personally trained by the Pandavas in the administrative affairs. Yes, this part is very important, everyone's life. So, Ishwari Murari Priya Mataji, are you available? You can read through this part, everyone's life.
Everyone's life must be so arranged that the last stage of life, say at least the last 15 to 20 years prior to death, can be absolutely devoted to the devotional service of the Lord to attain the highest perfection of life. It is really foolishness to engage oneself all the days of one's life in material enjoyment and fruitive activities, because as long as the mind remains absorbed in fruitive work for material enjoyment, there is no chance of getting out from conditioned life or material bondage. No one should follow the suicidal policy of neglecting one's supreme task of attaining the highest perfection of life, namely going back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So Bhagavatam is calling this particular process of retiring in one's own home and staying attached to household affairs till the very end of life as a suicidal policy. Suicidal policy means we are killing our own soul by not letting it progress in spiritual journey to the next life, the spiritual body onwards, and getting stuck in this current material life itself. So that is considered by Bhagavatam as a suicidal policy of neglecting one's supreme task of attaining the highest perfection of life, namely going back home, back to Godhead. Yes, this verse we will recite. So, Divya Rukmini Mataji, please unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Visrajya tatra tat sarvam. Dukula valayatikam. Nirmamo nirahankara. Satchinna sheshabantana. Translation. Maharaja Yudhishthira at once relinquished all his garments, belt and ornaments of the royal order and became completely disinterested and unattached to everything. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Purport. To become purified of material contamination is the necessary qualification for becoming one of the associates of the Lord. No one can become an associate of the Lord or can go back to Godhead without such purification. Maharaja Yudhishthira, therefore, to become spiritually pure at once, gave up his royal opulence, relinquishing his Hare Krishna. Relinquishing his royal dress and garments. Continue, Prabhu, or
people
are generally attached to various kinds of designations. The designation of family, society, country, occupation, wealth, position, and many others. As long as one is attached to such designations, he is considered materially impure. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you. So in the later part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that if a person is attached to all these designations, including nationalistic sentiments and so on and so forth, probably that person may be famous for a limited period of time at that particular point in time. But generations later, people will forget him. On the other hand, if a person is just attached to Lord Krishna and nothing else, not carrying attachment to any other types of temporary designations, like Maharaj Yudhishthir, he was completely unattached, then such a person is glorified even generations later. Like right now, we are glorifying Maharaj Yudhishthir even 5,000 years since his own time, since his departure. So that is the proper way to retire without being attached to any of these temporary false designations. Divya Rukmini Mataji continued translation. Then he
amalgamated all the sense organs into the mind, then the mind into life into breathing, his total existence into the embodiment of the 5 elements, and his body and into death. Then, as pure self, he became free from the material conception of life. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
And read the next translation also.
Thus annihilating the gross body of 5 elements into the 3 qualitative modes of material nature, he merged them in one nescience and then absorbed that nescience in the self, Brahman, which is inexhaustible to all circumstances. Hare Krishna.
So although some of these terms might seem technical in terms of amalgamation means merging, bringing together. So this sequence is mentioned just the reverse of the sequence that is mentioned in Canto 2 of Srimad Bhagavatam of Brahma's secondary creation. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada puts it in a very simple words by saying that Maharaj Yudhishthir focused all his attention on the transcendental service of the Lord, and thus he was able to prepare himself to give up the body by totally focusing his attention on the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So we won't go through the complete purports. You can go through the details afterwards. You can read through the highlighted part, Mataji.
Maharaja Yudhishthira, after distributing his kingdom to Parikshit and Vraja, did not think himself emperor of the world or head of the Kuru dynasty. This sense of freedom from material relations, as well as freedom from the material engagement of the gross and subtle encirclement, makes one free to act as the servitor of the Lord, even though one is in the material world. This stage is called the Jivan Mukta stage, or the liberated stage, even in the material world. That is the process of ending material existence. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So Bhagavatam is explaining what is the ideal way to retire from the family life. So I will just quickly read through few translations myself, Prabhuji's, Mataji, then we go through the group activity. After that, Maharaj Yudhishthir dressed himself in torn clothing, gave up eating all solid foods, voluntarily became dumb, and let his hair hang loose. All this combined to make him look like an urchin or madman with no occupation. He did not depend on his brothers for anything, and just like a deaf man, he heard nothing. Who do we get reminded of by this description, Prabhuji's, Mataji's? Who was acting like a madman? Maharaj Jadabharat. Who else? Who else?
Rishabdev.
Jadabharat is correct. Maharaj Rishabdev. Yes. Who else?
Sutta Goswami, can we
There
say
are quite a
Prabhuji?
few examples. Sutta Goswami, we don't hear such description. You mean Shukadev Goswami or Sutta Goswami?
Sukadev Goswami.
Sukadev Goswami, sorry.
Shukadev Goswami. Shukadev Goswami, yes, he was also externally, his appearance was that of a madman, where it is explained that the children were literally throwing the stones towards him, thinking him to be a madman. There is one more example from Bhagavatam. Which other personality? All these personalities are referred to as avadhuta. That means they don't bother about their externals. We also see the description of Prahlad Maharaj meeting an avadhuta in the forest, who was also lying like this in the external setup. So he was not at all, the outsiders, the worldly people could never understand the spiritual advancement of such avadhuta person. So externally they were living like a madman. Yes, Murli Prabhu?
Dattatreya Prabhuji? He was also Avadhuta. I don't know the other.
Yeah, yes. He's also mentioned as Avadhuta. So basically, Yudhishthir Maharaj deliberately made his external appearance of that of a Avadhuta, which would make him look like a madman externally. Secondly, Bhagavatam mentions he did not depend on his brother. What does it mean? Earlier on, we see that whenever Yudhishthir Maharaj had to undertake some important affairs, like say conducting a yagya, Rajasuya yagya or Ashwamedh yagya, his immediate priority was sending Bhimasen in one direction, sending Arjuna in another direction, sending Nakul and Sahadev in different direction, just to make sure that all the requisite paraphernalia, requisite assets are brought in by his younger brothers. But now, in this particular pursuance of Yudhishthir Maharaj in preparing himself going back to Godhead, he is not dependent on any of his younger brothers to serve him in any particular manner. And Srila Prabhupada gives a brilliant purport 2-3 verses down the line of why it is important. Whatever training we take, when our hands, legs are working fine, that is good. But when it is time to prepare oneself to go back home, back to Godhead, we cannot expect any help. All that training would come to assist at that particular point of time. So that time we cannot expect physical help from anybody else. Prabhupada writes a statement, we have to fly our own plane. So we'll come to that verse. Any questions, comment, Prabhuji's, Mataji's? If not, we proceed. He then started towards the north. North means, Murli Prabhu, what does north mean?
Towards Himalayas.
Himalayas.
Yes.
Himalaya, yes. He then started towards the north, treading the path accepted by his forefathers and great men to devote himself completely to the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he lived in that way wherever he went. So basically, he lived in a Avadhuta way wherever he went. So here Prabhupada is again stressing how nobody should continue family life till the very end. No gentleman. Now what happens to the remaining members of the Pandava family, the Kuru family? The younger brothers of Maharaj Yudhishthir observed that the age of Kali had already arrived throughout the world and that the citizens of the kingdom were already affected by irreligious practice. Therefore, they decided to follow in the footsteps of their elder brother. That means Maharaj Yudhishthir did not specifically ask his younger brother to join him. They started following the path treaded by their elder brother. And here Srila Prabhupada mentions how the first half of the one's life till the 50 years of age should be to support the household duties, and the next half after 50 onwards should be totally dedicated for self-realization. So we proceed. What happens to the other members? Yes. This verse is important, so we will request a devotee to recite through. Ananda Prada Indulekha Mataji, would you like to recite, Mataji? Hare Krishna. Ananda Prada Mataji, would you like to recite? Yeah, okay.
ते साधु कृत सर्वार्था
ते साधु कृत
सर्वार्था
ज्ञात्वा ज्ञातिकम् आत्मनः
यान्तिकम् आत्मनः
मनसा धारयाम आसुर
मनसा धारयामासुर
वैकुण्ठा चरणाम्बुजम्
Vaikuntha Charanam.
So this verse gives the, yeah, you can read to the translation. Yeah.
They all had performed all the principles of religion and as a result rightly decided that the lotus feet of the Lord Shri Krishna are the supreme goal of all. Therefore, they meditated upon his feet without interruption.
Yes, ma'am. So here the qualifications of the Pandavas are mentioned. What was their qualification? Te sadhu kruta sarvartha. That means they had done all pious deeds throughout their life and even in their earlier life. So that means they were completely ready. When the time came for retirement, they did not have to develop any feeling of renunciation. They were completely ready with the pious credits in current life and in the previous life. And because of those pious credits, what happened? Jnatva atyantikam atmanaha. They were able to focus on the ultimate goal of life, which is to follow the focus their attention on the lotus feet of the Lord. Manasa dharayam asur vaikuntha charanambujam. And they could meditate single-mindedly on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna without any interruption. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives reference to the famous verse from Bhagavad Gita, Esham tva antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam drudavrittaha. that to surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna, one needs to have cleared all one's sinful reactions and have developed pious credits. Then one will be able to engage in the service of the Lord if these qualifications are present. And in the case of Pandavas, these qualifications were present wholesome way. So they were very quick to be able to focus their attention on Lord Krishna's lotus feet. Therefore, that they concentrated their minds upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Krishna. And then what happens next? Thus, by pure consciousness, due to constant devotional remembrance, they attain the spiritual sky which is ruled over by the Supreme Narayan, Lord Krishna. This is attained only by those who meditate upon the one Supreme Lord without deviation. This abode of Lord Sri Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavan, cannot be attained by persons who are absorbed in material conception of life. But the Pandavas, being completely washed of all material contamination, attained that abode in their very same bodies. Now, many a time this question is asked, why Maharaj Yudhishthir had to see for a moment the hellish planets, or why did the Pandavas had to visit the heavenly planets? But here Bhagavatam is confirming 100%. Whatever they had to visit on the way, that is a different fact altogether. But ultimately, the Pandavas did go back to Goloka Vrindavan. And Bhagavatam also mentions that they are Nitya Parikara, they are the eternal associates of Lord Krishna. So they attained that constitutional position of being a eternal associate in the Goloka Vrindavan. They attained that abode. In the very same bodies, Prabhupada explains in the purport, you can go through, that if a devotee wholeheartedly submits his body in service to Lord Krishna, that body becomes transcendental even in this life. And Prabhupada gives the example of fire and the iron rod. So such devotees can go back to Godhead in the same bodies. Specifically, the Pandavas went that way. And even Draupadi, Subhadra, and we also see some of the other saintly persons like Santa Tukaram, they also went back to Godhead in the same transcendental body. So this you can go through later. And now we come to the second last verse. What happens to Vidura? Okay, so earlier we see Vidura had left the palace along with Gandhari and Dhritarashtra. And Gandhari and Dhritarashtra's passing away we read earlier. What happens to Vidura? Vidura, while on pilgrimage, left his body at Prabhasa. So this is also the place where Lord Krishna concluded his pastimes. Because he was absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, he was received by the denizens of the Pitruloka planet, where he returned to his original post. Now, in the purport, we see the difference between the destination attained by the Pandavas and Vidura, and how we understand, how we sync up these two. So maybe we'll request a devotee to read through Prabhuji's, Mataji's. Anybody would like to read through? This is very important.
May I read, Prabhuji?
Jagadananda Prabhu. Yes, Prabhuji.
Purport. The difference between the Pandavas and Vidura is that the Pandavas are eternal associates of the Lord, the personality of Godhead, whereas Vidura is one of the administrative demigods in charge of the Pitraloka planet and is known as Yamaraja. Men are afraid of Yamaraja because it is he only who awards punishment to the miscreants of the material world. But those who are devotees of the Lord have nothing to fear from him. To the devotees, he is a cordial friend, but to the non-devotees, he is fear personified.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So here we see that Vidura is referred to as an administrative demigod, right? And his destination is mentioned as the denizens of the Pitruloka planet. They received him. Does it mean that Vidura did not go back home back to Godhead? The answer is both yes and no. Srila Prabhupada explains that there are certain pure devotees of the Lord who are serving in the material universe in different capacities. And Vidura, as we know, one of the Mahajanas, he is also serving the Lord in the capacity of Yamaraj in this material universe. So, even when such great devotees are based in this material universe, they are constantly in touch with the Lord because of their spiritual stature, because of their devotional service. So, in the case of Vidura, sorry, I forgot to cover this verse, I will cover in a while. So, in the case of Vidura, we see that definitely he went back to the Yamaloka to continue his service of being Yamaraj to punish the sinful living entities. But that does not mean that he is any less compared to Pandavas who went back home back to Godhead. So basically, Pandavas being the Nitya associate of the Lord, it was desired by the Lord that they regain their constitutional position and join him in the spiritual world. Whereas for Vidura, it was desired by the Lord that he continue his service for the remainder of the period of serving as a Yamaraj. And that's why he went back to serve as Yamaraj. But obviously, there is no distinction. Why? Because after that particular term is over, Vidura, as a pure devotee of the Lord, is also destined for back home, back to Godhead. So please don't get confused that how one devotees are reaching one destination, another set of pure devotees are reaching another destination. Is there any differentiation in terms of their devotional service or in terms of their surrender? Not at all. Both are pure devotees. It is just that one is engaged in rendering some service within this material setup, which Krishna wants him to continue. Any question, queries, Prabhuji's, Mataji's on this? On Vidura going back to the Pitruloka and then back to the Yamaloka to continue his service.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, the picture on the right, the picture on the right is what, Prabhuji?
Okay, the picture on the right side. So basically, this is the picture of a very simple devotee of the Lord, Sridhar Kolavej, who basically used to have only one pot and cook his prasadam in that and offer to the deities and then accept. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very fond of this devotee, Sridhar Kolavej, that he used to tease him on a daily basis, like he was a banana leaf seller, that firstly haggle with him with the banana leaf prices and all, and then mention to Sridhar that you possess a great treasure which you are hiding from the whole world, and one day I will reveal this treasure to you. And many a times he would forcibly take the chipped rice prasadam from Sridhar Kolavech's bag, which he would beg Madhukari to different houses. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu glorified that prasadam as the best of all food that he had tasted. So the point here is what is mentioned on the left hand side. A devotee's aspiration is not to literally to go back home back to Godhead in the pure state. In the pure state, the devotee's aspiration, there are few Vaishnava songs I have quoted here, is to stay in the association of devotees and keep rendering service to the Lord in the humble way, in whatever way Lord desires. It is not to directly go back home back to Godhead and enjoy the facilities in the spiritual kingdom. So first is the Manasa Deha Geha, that Vaishnava song by Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Is it by Bhakti Vinod Thakur? Where he mentions Kita Janma Haujatha Tuvadasa Bahirmukha Brahma Janme Asa. He mentioned that I don't desire even birth that of Lord Brahma if it is Bahirmukha, if it is being born as averse to you, that means not in devotional service. On the other hand, I would anytime prefer the birth, even as that of an insect or a worm, in the house of your devotee, so that there is a possibility that the devotee will throw some prasadam and I would get to associate with the devotee and consume that prasadam, mahaprasadam of your devotee. So that birth is preferable to me than even a great birth as Lord Brahma if I am not going to be your devotee, if I am going to be vimukha or averse to you. Or similarly, there is another Vaishnava song, Sarvasva Tomar Charane Sampiya by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in which he sings of तव निज जन प्रसाद सेविया उच्चिष्ट राखिबे जहा আমার ভোজন পরমা আনন্দে প্রতিদিন হবে তাহা. So here again Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is praying to Lord Krishna that this song begins that सर्वस्व तोमार चरणे संपिया पडेची तोमार घरे तुम्ही तो ठाकुर तोमार कुकुर janiya more. That means, oh my dear Lord, I want to be a dog at your devotee's house. And then he goes on to pray that every day your devotees will throw some prasadam and I will with great taste and honor, I will honor that prasadam. Amar bhojan parama anande. With great delight, I will accept that uchishta. I will accept the remnants of the food that are thrown by your devotees. And that will be my great feast every single day. So, and then finally, I quoted the verse from Chaitanya Shishtastakam, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself teaches us that our aspiration is not to gain lot of wealth, followers, or beautiful women, but our aspiration is to get service to servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord in every birth. Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatar Bhaktir Ahaituki Dvai. So that is the aspiration of a devotee. So coming back to the verse of Vidura, it is not that Vidura attained some lesser destination. Not at all. Vidura is one of the Mahajanas and authority in devotional service. So he went back to the position to continue his service for the remainder of the period. What he is destined to. And Prabhupada glorifies Vidura. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji. Hare
Prabhuji, I have
Krishna.
a doubt, Prabhuji. Now, what is the duration of the demigods, Prabhuji? Are they eternal? No.
No, definitely not eternal, but their 12 hours are equal to our 180 days, and that way they have 100 years, typically.
So Yamaraj also has 100 years.
So let's not speculate for Yamaraj, because Yamaraj we don't necessarily consider as an ordinary demigod. More than demigod, for us, he is a Mahajana. He is a pure devotee of the Lord. So he would continue in that service whatever duration Krishna has asked him to continue. But it is a post basically.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Murli Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
No, Prabhuji. It was a mistake on my part.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, fine. So now we come to the last but one verse, and we are almost closing in on time. Yes, this purport is very important. What happened to Pandavas, Kunti Maharani, and Vidura we saw. Now what happens to Draupadi? This again shows that not every member was taken along as a planning. Everybody started following based on their realization. Draupadi also saw that her husbands, without caring for her, were leaving home. She knew very well about Lord Vasudev, Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Both she and Subhadra became absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and attained the same results as their husbands. Now, purport is very important. Prema Priya Mataji, you want to read the purport?
I'll do it, yeah.
Unmute.
When flying in airplane, one cannot take care of other planes. Everyone has to take care of his own plane. And if there is any danger, No other plane can help another in that condition. Similarly, at the end of life, when one has to go back home, back to Godhead, everyone has to take care of himself without help rendered by another. The help is, however, offered on the ground before flying in space. Similarly, the spiritual master, the father, the mother, the relatives, the husband, and others can all render help during one's lifetime. But while crossing the sea, one has to take care of himself and utilize the instructions formally received. Do I continue, Prabhuji?
Yes, so this is enough, Mataji. This is the golden statement that Srila Prabhupada writes. While crossing the sea, one has to take care of himself and utilize the instructions formerly received. That means when the death comes and when so many thoughts are crossing our mind one after another, the whole life is going like a movie in front of us. It is us and our devotional practice which we have learned earlier that will come to help. But we cannot expect any outside personalities or medium to help us at that particular point in time. Prabhupada mentions one has to fly one's own plane, other planes cannot come to help. So, even what to speak of outside persons, even one's spiritual master, father, mother, relatives, their help will definitely be in picture till the time our senses are working. But when the senses are giving up and when the time of death is approaching, it is only us, Krishna, and what we have learned in our life. We have to utilize that to focus our attention on Krishna. We cannot expect any external help at that particular point in time. It is very, very important. Yes, and now we come to the last verse of this particular chapter, very short translation and purport and very important. Prema Priya Mataji, continue the subject.
Yes, Prabhuji. Translation. The subject of the departure of the sons of Pandu for the ultimate goal of life, back to Godhead, is fully auspicious and is perfectly pure. Therefore, anyone who hears this narration with devotional faith certainly gains the devotional service of the Lord, the highest perfection of life. I'll continue. Srimad Bhagavatam is a narration about the personality of Godhead and the devotees of the Lord like Pandavas. The narration of the personality of Godhead and his devotees is absolutely in itself, and thus to hear it with a devotional attitude is to associate with the Lord and constant companions of the Lord. But by the process of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one can attain the highest perfection of life, namely going back to Godhead without failure. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the first Canto, 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Pandavas Retired Timely. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you. So here we see that finally, one by one, all the Pandavas, they reach Goloka Vrindavan. And this particular point we had skipped, so we'll just conclude with this particular point. In text 46, how Bhagavatam mentions that for such a devotee who has practiced Krishna consciousness throughout his or her life, like the qualification of the Pandavas is mentioned, they have been trained, they have trained themselves throughout this life, previous life, so they are completely ready when the time of examination has come. Similarly, Bhagavatam mentions that for such a devotee who has prepared himself throughout one's life, the benefit is that the consciousness is completely clear. There are no confusions, there are no misconceptions. Even at the time of death, when our faculties, when our senses are not helping, when our body is not cooperating, still the intelligence of a devotee is completely steadfast and clear. And what is the photo that is shown on the right? Prabhuji's, Mataji's, who can mention? What are the details for that photo?
Prabhupada's
Yeah,
last
what is
Prabhupada,
His
last moments of
and,
Srila Prabhupada.
and last moment. And what is Prabhupada doing in those last moments?
Yeah, he's chanting, Prabhuji.
No, recording Bhagavatam.
Japa.
Yes,
Japa.
he is
Translating
giving
Bhagavatam.
purports to the Bhagavatam, translating and giving purports to Bhagavatam. In fact, all of you will be happy to know that this particular chapter, chapter 13, Canto 10 of Srimad Bhagavatam, was the last chapter that was translated and given purports by Srila Prabhupada, which is the Brahma stealing the coward boys and the calves, and then Brahma's prayers. Chapter 14, Prabhupada was not on this planet. So we coming back to this particular slide, we see that consciousness of such a devotee who has practiced throughout his or her life is crystal clear, even at the last moment of one's life, because of their regular association with Lord Krishna. So let us recite this verse, Prabhuji's Mataji's. No uttama shloka vartana.
No
Jushatam tat kathamritam.
Jushatam tat kathamritam.
Syat sambramo antakalepi.
Syat sambramo antakalepi.
Smaratam tat padambujam.
Smaratam tat padambujam.
So here Bhagavatam glorifies that those who have dedicated their lives to the transcendental topics of personality of Godhead. So specific translation Prabhupada mentions as Vartanam. That means those who live on them. What does it mean by living on them? That means such devotees have for their breakfast, lunch and dinner the topics of Krishna Katha. They have for their breakfast, lunch and dinner Srimad Bhagavatam discussion, reading, hearing and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. For such devotees, what happens? Dushatam, who have dedicated their lives to the transcendental topics of Srimad, of personality of Godhead, of whom the Vedic hymns sing, and who are constantly engaged in the remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, they do not run the risk of having misconceptions even at the last moments of their lives. That means their intelligence is equally sharp, is equally clear, even when the bodily faculties are falling off one after another. By Krishna's grace, their intelligence remains steadfast, even at the fag end of their life. And intelligence remains steadfast, that means they are able to remember Krishna without any deviation, without any distraction. So that is the effect of practicing Krishna consciousness, specifically hearing about the Lord, discussing about the Lord while our senses are still working. So then our intelligence will be very clear. As we can see from the example of Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So there was a group activity, but I think we have utilized
Hare Krishna
our
Prabhuji.
time.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, the previous one with
Yes.
the Prabhupada's, that's 2 slides previous. Yeah, this one. This is the sloka is from no, the previous one.
118.
4.
Okay.
Okay. I was confused there because I was thinking 115 46. So no problem.
Okay. Yeah. So okay. All right. Yeah. So this is 11.6.10. This sloka.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And na uttama shloka vartana, that will come in the 18th chapter.
The 18th chapter. Okay. Yeah,
okay. All right. So thank you all very much, Prabhuji's, Mataji's. Are there any questions, comments?
One doubt I have.
Any thoughts?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Radhika.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Prabhu, one doubt is the Pandavas went in their original body. I got that, but did it like Krishna gave up his body, which means that there was a material body which he gave up, or I didn't get that clearly, Prabhu.
Actually, even for Krishna, it is mentioned that he went into the same self transcendental body.
Okay, so he also
Okay.
literally all of that disappeared, right? So
It was
Yeah, literally disappeared. Yeah.
he was always
And
in
to be honest,
transcendental
for
body.
Krishna, yeah, so for his body, Prabhupada mentions that at no point in time his body was material. It was always transcendental body as such.
Oh, okay, clear. Prabhu.
Okay.
And so technically all of them went with their own body. So they never had, I mean, they were all having a spiritual body throughout. Arjuna, Yudhishthira, Pandavas, Subhadra,
Yeah,
Draupadi.
basically, Pandavas, because of their constant association and service, their body had become transcendental. So they are jivas, they are spirit souls, they are not Vishnu tattvas, but they, because of service, their body became transcendental.
Sure.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anand Vilas Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji,
Yes, Prabhu.
like you mentioned that everyone has his own spiritual journey, or Prabhupada says that we have our own flight. So, but sometimes we see that even if someone is doing some devotional service, so the relatives also get benefited, like Nagakanya and this Kalia and Dvijapatni and their husbands, Brahmanas. And similarly, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya also got mercy because he was a relative of Gopinath Acharya. So, means, and also Lord Chaitanya says that, who is my devotee, I take care of even his dog in his house. So how do we relate this statement? One means, one side we say that we have our own spiritual journey, other side we can see that even if someone is doing devotional services, so his relatives also get some benefit.
Yes. So all the examples that you quoted, Anand Vilas Prabhu, they are like the grace marks that we are going to get in our exam. But an ideal student, when he prepares for the exam, we don't base our preparation based on grace marks. We prepare based on fully qualifying ourselves by writing proper answer sheet. So as far as preparation is concerned, we prepare best possible way by taking down the instructions, applying them in our life, and trying to prepare our consciousness so that when the exam comes, it is not a shock, it is not all of a sudden, and we stay prepared to be able to focus our attention on Krishna. So as far as endeavor is concerned, we put our best foot forward, but at the same time, Krishna's mercy is there, the way you mentioned through several examples. But we don't base our preparation based on that.
So
Is that all
so
right,
when
Anand? Yeah.
yes, Prabhuji. So when means Prahlad Maharaj says that in that conversation, it is quoted that at 21 generation are liberated. So what does it mean? Means they got chance for devotional services, or they directly go back home, back to Godhead?
Actually, Prabhupada just mentioned that there is no doubt that based on the strength of devotional service of a pure devotee, those generations will definitely go back home, back to Godhead. Just that we don't literally base our going back home, back to Godhead on anybody else, but prepare ourselves. But yes, they will get exactly that benefit, what is mentioned, no doubt.
Okay.
Okay, Prabhu.
So
And secondly, for these devotees, say for example, like Prahlad Maharaj, Vasudev Dutt, and so on and so forth, these are like exemplary student who, even if they are to appear for the exam middle of the night, they are confident of remembering Krishna, right? Mainly these instructions, what we see on the screen, are for the sadhaka bhaktas who are practicing, who are learning to focus their attention on Krishna. So for us, it is very important that we take these instructions and practice that remembrance on Krishna while our senses are working and not leave it to chance.
okay, means in general we will get benefited,
Yeah,
But
we will definitely get benefited.
exceptionally, we can also get liberated. We can be also get liberated. Exceptionally means if someone is
Yes.
very exalted, like Prahlad Maharaj. But in general, we need to practice and get mercy of devotees.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
thank
need
you.
to practice and prepare ourselves. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
See, because just recently also I shared on the group that somehow by Krishna's grace, since I was of the age of 17, I have seen quite a few people passing away. When I was in 12th, I saw the first death, which was the mother of my landlord. And I can tell you based on my own observance that it is a very painful situation, not at all easy. And person is not at all within his or her senses. It's completely last 24-36 hours even, where no external help can be provided, whatever we try, even if we play kirtan and all, until and unless that person has practiced in his own or her life, it is very difficult. So, at least seeing those death situations, I am very convinced that as while our hands and legs and senses are still working, it is in our best interest that we practice. Because those last few hours, nobody else than ourselves and Krishna can help.
Okay.
Apart from these two entities.
Yes,
Hare
yes.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I have a doubt, Prabhuji. Now, when Krishna goes back to Goloka Vrindavana, I mean, he goes in the self-same body, you said that, no? Then again, when the next incarnation has to appear, then how he takes the next incarnation and just descends, is it?
Typically, the incarnations part is handled by Garbhodakshay Vishnu. Okay, typically, all the incarnations, except for Lord Ramachandra, Narsimhadev, and Lord Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya. Except for these 3-4, all other incarnation, Matsya incarnation, Varaha avatar, and Vamana avatar, all these are handled by Vishnu, Lord Vishnu. Okay, but when it is Lord Chaitanya, it is Lord Krishna himself, and same for Lord Krishna, Narsimhadev.
So when he disappears here, Lord Krishna, he'll appear as Krishna in some other universe, is it, Prabhuji?
Sorry,
when he disappears here on earth, then does he appear as Krishna in some other universe?
Yes, correct. So constantly Krishna's different incarnations are even now appearing in different universes, performing his pastimes of reclaiming the conditioned souls. So every moment, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, anybody wants to share?
Prabhuji, I have a doubt, Prabhuji.
Yes, Sanjukta. Yes.
Prabhuji, it was told that informed that Krishna's heart is still now there in Jagannath temple, right? Puri.
Yes,
Every 12 years it's get changed, like whenever we put. So how it is related, Prabhuji?
So see, Krishna's material, actually as such, he doesn't have any material body, but Krishna's body, we cannot understand it based on the material elements, Mataji. For example, I'll give you a simple example. Say when Nityananda Prabhu was attacked by Madhya, Chaitanya Charitamrita mentioned that he started bleeding from head to toe. Entire body was covered in blood. So does it mean that his body is similar to ours? Not at all. It is transcendental. So, but these are all pastimes, Mataji. We cannot analytically understand it based on, okay, this part is taken out and this is in this particular area or place. Then how did Krishna go back home, back to Godhead? His entire body is absolute. That means he can reside in more than one places in complete whole. Is that all right, Mataji? So even if Krishna's heart of his transcendental bodies is at a place, still his complete whole can exist in another place also. Okay,
Hare
Mataji?
Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right. So thank you very much, Prabhuji's, Mataji's. If there are no other questions, then we conclude for
Hare
today.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
And we request devotees. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji.
Attendance link probably was shared early, Prabhuji. I was late.
Yes. Yeah, I will share.
Sorry,
No,
but
I haven't shared. Hang on one second.
Hare Krishna, I have already shared, Prabhu.
No.
I'll reshare it. 1 second.
yeah, okay. Sorry, Mataji,
Okay.
I was
So
late.
this is the same one which was given by Rohini Mataji?
Yes, same, Prabhu. Coordinated with her.
Okay.
Thanks.
Fine.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji Mataji. Vamcha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Vaishnav Thakur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Guru Maharaj ki jai. Hare
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Lord Pranams,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Prabhuji, exam,
Hare Krishna.
Exam the coming week, Mataji.
Exam next week.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Let-
Krishna.
I will
Hare
submit
Krishna.